Brought to you by Penguin.
Stanley and the Women by Kingsley Amos. Read by John Sackville. 1. Onset. It had been one of Susan's most successful evenings. After weeks of hot sun in the late June and July, the weather had turned cool, and some of the people, especially the women, must have been quite glad of the candles round the dinner table. The room, which she had recently had redecorated, looked bright and cheerful. There was a comfortable, friendly atmosphere, with everybody contributing something to the conversation. The first course, cold avocado soup with a sprinkling of red pepper on top, had been made by Mrs. Shillibeer, the daily woman, under Susan's supervision, and it went down extremely well. So did the cold-cooked salmon with cucumber, fresh mayonnaise, and a sauce made out of chopped olives, also by Mrs. Shillibeer. They drank a rather good white burgundy with that, 4 bottles between the 8 persons there, and a small glass each of a sweet Rhone wine with the raspberries and cream. By the time Susan took them upstairs for coffee, they were in excellent form. The sitting room on the first floor had a low ceiling and a rather awkward shape, but she had done her best to turn it into an attractive place with carefully chosen lamps and bright rugs and cushions. The pictures were all personal in some way too, done by artists known to her or the gifts of friends. A long row of gramophone records, mostly orchestral, instrumental and chamber works, stood in a specially built wooden case, part of which housed the rather old-fashioned hi-fi. But naturally, it was books that predominated. No science, no history, a bit of biography, and some essays alongside a lot of plays, poetry, novels and short stories. Her own 2 books of collected pieces were among the essays somewhere, not in any particular place. Quite a few of the books had come her way as review copies in the literary department of the Sunday Chronicle. Others she sold off in regular batches, an established perk that went some way towards making up her salary as assistant literary editor of the paper. Not far, though, especially considering how much of the literary editor's work she had to do besides her own. He was there that evening, old Robbie Leishman Jameson. In fact, she had very much set it up as his evening, with an American novelist also present, and a new writer of science fiction or something of the kind, and their wives. Old Robbie was the centre of attraction, on the pale grey velvet settee, with a shot of his favourite malt whisky in a cut-glass tumbler, and Susan encouraging him to tell all his best Evelyn Waugh stories, especially the one about Noel Coward and the papal nuncio, which had to be explained to the American novelist's wife. People used to say about Susan, at this stage of her life, that things were going not too badly for her, after some rather rough times earlier on. Back at the beginning, there had been a husband nobody seemed to know a great deal about, an unsuccessful painter or book illustrator she married to spite her family, according to her, and started divorcing as soon as she found the family had been right about him all the time. Her main attachment after that had been to a considerably more successful left-wing playwright she lived with for 6 years, but could not marry because he already had a wife, and as well as being left-wing, was a Roman Catholic, not one of the sort that went in for divorce. That part lasted till the end of '78, when the fellow's wife developed a serious illness, and he went back to her. On the 12th of February 1980, Susan began her second and present marriage, and later that year moved into the substantial Victorian red-brick house up near the pond in Hampstead, once the property of a minor poet and antiquarian of those days. She had passed her 38th birthday a fortnight before the party for Robbie Jameson. At first glance, she could have been quite that, a rather tall woman who walked and stood a bit off-centre, with her hands on her elbows very often, frowning, blinking rather above the normal rate, and always pushing her upper lip down over her teeth, and pressing the lower lip against it in a doubtful kind of way. In one of her grey cardigans or unsensational dark summer dresses, she could have been mistaken for a librarian, or even a secretary in a local authority office, but only for a second, and before she realised someone else was there. Close to, and in conversation, she showed up as younger, better shape for a start, and also much more definite in her appearance, with large, clear brown eyes.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?